Welcome, everybody. Today we're doing another Q&A with one of our great providers. I'm very excited about this provider today because not only has he had great success with the device with his patients, but also great success with the device for his practice. Today we're with Dr. Kalani Jose out of Ventura, California, out of Oxnard. Welcome, Dr. Kalani.
Good morning and welcome. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So we've got a lot of great, exciting things to discuss about, your practice in StemWave. But before we get into any of that, just so everybody watching knows, if you have questions for Dr. Kalani, if you have questions for myself or about StemWave, you can use the chat here in Zoom. We'll do a kind of Q&A section at the end. But for right now, in the beginning part, let's find out a little bit more about you, Dr. Kalani. Could you give everybody an idea of your background?
Thank you. So I've been a chiropractor for 28 years in Oxnard, California. I've had different locations. The current location that I have, for the past 10 years, I've been doing my very best to work on a total health center. I realized that chiropractic, as much as I love chiropractic, it doesn't have the ability to help everyone in their quest for health. And so in the last 10 years, I've been building the Total Health Center and looking for different providers, looking for different modalities to help our patients. Because one thing I realized is that when you get that doctor title, patients trust you. And if it's within your scope, you can help them get better. But if outside of your scope, then you should refer to I'll refer out. And many times when I was referring out, what I found is that the patient would never come back. It just didn't make any sense to me. I mean, because when you talk about managing a patient's health, I would imagine that a co-op or adjunct type like treatment would be able to help make a difference in that patient's overall health. And so over the past 10 years, like I said, we've brought acupuncturists, medical providers, massage therapists together. And so I'm the CEO of the company as well, aside from being a practicing chiropractor. And so part of my duties and my responsibility is to always be on the search for different providers and different modalities that could potentially help our patients. And about 6 months ago, actually about a year now, I heard about shockwave therapy from a patient that was receiving or had considered receiving that kind of treatment. And so then I made the decision to start to investigate it. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that. I also have a home in Hawaii aside from California. I have a farm there. I have an event center. So I'm also an entrepreneur. I have 9 children. Yes. 5 boys, 4 girls. Outside of work, outside of my career, I invest all of my time to my family and also my higher faith. I just and so it's with that said, that's kind of who I am.
Wow. And so did you just say that you're throwing a big party for everybody at your house in Hawaii? Is that what you just
Come
said?
on over. You just give me the date. I always say, give me a reason to travel.
I love that. That's fantastic. What was it that got you into chiropractic in the first place?
It's a good question. In my lifetime, I broke my back twice. The first time I broke my back is that when I was in high school, I was a power lifter, and I realized after being in practice for about 10 years, I went to a seminar. It was a radiologic seminar, and they said 60% of students or children that are powerlifting in high school fractures their spine one way or another because their body's not fully developed. And Dr. Terry Yoakum said that, and he's a chiropractic radiologist. And so, powerlifting. I remember one day I was sitting in the gym, and I said to my mom, I said, "Can you please come pick me up?" And she said, "Why?" She said, and I said, "Because I can't feel my legs." And so, if you're familiar with Hawaii, there's a pink army hospital on the hill, and it's called Tripler Hospital. And so I had to rehabilitate my body and I was able to regain my ability to walk again.
Wow.
And so then um, over time, I joined the military, and then at one point in time, I was a Sparklets water bottle delivery man, and my truck, and was in a car accident or a vehicle collision, and so then I refractured my spine again, and at that point in time, I actually was paralyzed for about 3 years, and during that time of my injury, I prayed and I wasn't certain what I would do the rest of my life. And so then one of my I knew that I needed to go back to school. And so I was always, I continued to attend college. And while I stood in the back of the class in school, one of my classmates said, you should go see my dad. And I said, what does your dad do? And she said, he's a chiropractor. Oh, I don't want to see one of those. I had no idea what a chiropractor did. I just, my perception of chiropractic was probably what everyone else's was back in the 90s. And so then finally I got to the point where I said, you know what, can I go see your dad? Because I'm suffering and there's nothing that's helping me. They're recommending surgery. I don't want to take any more pain medications because I can't focus in school. So I went and saw her dad, and that was the beginning of a great career, because I realized at that point in time, chiropractic helped me. It got me back to functioning. It got me back to living a life again. And the rest is history. I've been a chiropractor for 28 years, like I said.
Wow. So, I think what's really cool about that is from the start, your journey in chiropractic, pretty much like the impetus was, I don't want to have to deal with surgery. I don't want to have to deal with pain pills. It's the same message that we talk about with StemWave, a modality that can get people healing without the surgeries and the invasive things and the pain pills. The other takeaway from your story just now is that even with two broken backs, you can still have 9 kids. That's fantastic.
Well,
Wow.
I'm part Hawaiian, so we find a way.
That's amazing. So, you've been in practice for over 20 years now, and you talked about some of the modalities, very limited modalities that you had before. What types of cases do you see come through the door on a daily basis at your practice?
Because as a chiropractor, I'm a portal of entry doctor, and so we don't necessarily need a referral from a medical doctor to see someone off the street. I see everything, and the question is, what do we really need to help them with first? And so, I mean, you talked about in just a minute ago, you talked about different modalities. So over the years, in the last 10 years, what we've done is we've used class 4 lasers, we use infrared, we use cupping, we've done trigger point injections, we've used PRP, we even gone to the extent of doing stem cell treatment. And so we see everything. And then the question then there lies is, based on that examination, that may include x-rays or some blood work or some other diagnostic testing, how do we then lead that patient to a holistic treatment or an alternative to the surgery or alternative to medicine?
Yeah, and then through that, you started having some interest in shockwave therapy, and tell everybody a little bit of how you came to discover StemWave.
Good question. So for in 2018, January 2018, I did the math. At that point in time, I probably delivered over 300,000 adjustments.
Wow.
I love to adjust. I mean, I for many years I was just a high volume chiropractor, in the sense that we would adjust 1,000 patients in a week. Yeah, that was a lot of adjustments, and so then I realized that principally chiropractically, when I adjust, it was for a specific purpose. But then I realized, looking at patients' health and overall health, they were suffering from shoulder problems, knee problems, hip problems, and and unfortunately at the time, chiropractically, I wasn't able to help them the way that I thought that I should help them. And because, I mean, they call me doctor. And so with that responsibility, I then realized I need that there was a limitation to what I was doing, and that's how and why I sought other ways of facilitating with patients out. Because, like I said, referring patients out, I'd like to think that we could have a harmonious relationship where we would be able to co-manage and co-treat that patient together. But many times with I don't know if it's either fear or economics, but for some reason they would never or rarely come back to me. And so by having a center where we have all the providers under one roof, I know for a fact that the patient can actually receive the treatment that they need, the correct treatment in the correct profession, and we all then converse about that patient. And at the end of the day, that patient's health is better and their life over time, year after year, is better.
Wow. And so at your clinic, you have MDs on staff, you've got chiropractor. Like, give us an idea of kind of who you all have working there.
So we have MD on staff. We have a NP or a PA on staff. We have MAs. We have massage therapists, acupuncturists, a couple of chiropractors. And so I'm always looking to see how we can improve because, I mean, we get the opportunity to live in Central California. It's one of the most beautiful places on this earth. And so I always wanted to make sure that we were able to bring the best care to our community.
And so when you started looking for these kind of like X factors of how you could make sure that some of your patients would come back or you could help them with all their different injuries, how did StemWave pop up on your radar?
That's a good question as well, because one of the things that I've always had in my, as I exit the door of my room in my home, is that I actually have the scope of practice of what chiropractors can do. And so chiropractic can help with everything with the exception of puncturing the skin. And sound was an actual way of treatment. And so when I was introduced to shockwave and the way that that technology works, I it filled that category. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that with the impulse and the sound, that with the way that the electronic hydroelectronic mechanism work, that's one of the ways that it helps to reduce or eliminate pain and also inflammation. And so by having my scope of practice there, I'm always on the lookout for different realms and modalities of how we can help our patients. So, like I said, one of my patients, as I was treating, they mentioned that they were going to have a shockwave treatment, and so of course if I'm gonna do something, I don't want to do anything in a way that it's mediocre. I always want to make sure that I always do and utilize the services that are the best. And one of the things that I realized in my research for stem wave or shockwave treatment was stem wave. You're the best in the market today. And I'm sure we can talk about that in a little bit, but literally, in looking at the other companies that offer similar or like type treatments, StemWave is the best.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it's definitely something that we strive to be. What was it that stood out to you in your mind about StemWave that you said, oh, these guys are the best?
There was a lot of things that stood out. First off, the coaches that you have that are promoting StemWave, they're solid. Dr. Morris, Dr. Anthony, Dr. Dustin, and fortunately, Dr. Dustin Barton is a good friend of mine, and so I called him up probably about 8 months ago, and I said, "Hey, Doc, be honest with me. What's your thoughts with StemWave?" And he said that he was with other companies before, and the stem wave unit was just so superior to those other companies that he moved from the other companies to this company. And so what stands out is that the downtime when you have to service your unit, it's there's no downtime. I mean, the electrodes are easy to replace. The saline solution is easy to replace. Um, the unit itself, it's a beautiful unit. I mean, if you look at the other units, I went to Parker, Las Vegas this past month. I think it was this month, last month in March. I saw the competitors and I got to watch how the treatments were being done. and their devices. And I mean, it just StemWave is just so far superior. In addition to that, the support, school. I mean, when I heard I had to go back to school, I was like, really, that's another thing I need to do. But then I when I went into the rabbit hole of school, I was impressed with the videos. And like I said, Ben, I got an opportunity to watch you for the last 6 months, 8 months, and now I actually get to have an interview with you, which is pretty cool. Um, and so then the depth that of knowledge that you have that's available for the providers, for the team, it, for me, it's essential because aside from being a chiropractor, I'm an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, I need to leverage myself. And if I'm not leveraging myself and if I'm doing everything, then I'm really not an entrepreneur. I'm a owner employee of my business. And I never want to be that. I always want to be the leader. I want to be a CEO. And so allowed me to what has why do I say StemWave is far more superior is because the depth of what you guys prepared and put together is just amazing. I mean, it, I encourage everyone to even just to take a deep dive into school and see what I'm talking about because you guys covered everything. I don't know what you did not cover.
That's awesome to hear. And for people that don't know, School is an online platform that we use that hosts a lot of our information for our providers. Providers can share their, wins using StemWave, post questions on message boards, have some of our clinical advisors give instruction or examples of how best to use the device. It's just a really great platform, and we have a lot of data in there as well, tons of videos of the trainings on how to use the device, and it's just like a whole really robust service that helps our providers. So you had an inside track with Dr. Barton. He gave you kind of the green light that yeah, StemWave is, the cream of the crop. What was the process like after that? Did you book a call with their sales team? What was that like?
So one of the great things about your sales team is and because I'm an entrepreneur, new client acquisition is very important and it's essential. And I got the privilege of working with Abi, and Abi, I mean, his customer service abilities are phenomenal. And so Abi, if he said he was going to be there, he showed up on time. If he said that he was going to do something, he did what he said he was going to do. As a matter of fact, when it came to working with Abi, I think he's probably the best salesperson that I've worked with in a long time. And so he was able to help me because I wanted to not just be successful with StemWave, I wanted to break the records and the goals that I set up for myself. And so he helped me get into the right contract. He gave me the confidence that I needed. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what he did is he was able to have a provider come out to California and help onboard me with StemWave.
Wow. Yeah, I shout out to Avi, shout out to our entire sales team. I think, something you just said, we do what we say we're going to do. And I think
Yep.
that's like a good way to think about StemWave as an entire company. We really do. We put our money where we put our money where our mouth is. And we offer the 60-day trial for anybody that doesn't know and is interested in StemWave. When you become a StemWave provider, you can try the device out for 60 days. That's how confident we are with how effective it's going to be for your patients and for your business. Um, but that's such a great, story to hear how every step of the way through the sales process, which can be intimidating and scary at a lot of other companies. And when people think about working, getting on a sales call, they think about like a high pressure thing, and it's not really going to be a fun thing. But correct me if I'm wrong. It's very much like this conversation. Our sales team just wants to learn about your practice, find out if StemWave is a fit, because it's not a fit for everybody. We really only choose people to work with that we know it's going to be successful with. So um, once you talked to Abby, got the contract in place. You said you had a provider come out, and did you go to a group training, or did you have like one at your where you were at your clinic?
So I did not go to a group training. because like I said, I'm a practicing chiropractor. So leaving my practice, that means I would have to surrender about 100 to 150 adjustments in a day. And to rearrange my schedule, that would be not fun. And so fortunately, we were able to get Dr. Barton out here. And funny, you talked about the 60-day guarantee. And so can I cover that just a little
Yeah,
bit?
yeah, for sure. I think it's important for people to know.
And so that gave me a security blanket that if it didn't work, I could return the unit, and no questions asked, and no harm nor foul, and the patients in that 60 days would have benefited from the service. But during that first introduction visit when Dr. Barton came out, and that training, we scheduled, I believe, 25 patients. And out of the 25 patients, we made $36,000. And I realized at the 45-day mark, we were seeing patients with a full schedule, 4 days a week. There was no possible way that I could return the unit. So because we were fully pot committed and all in, I said, let's set up our next goal. And I'm glad that we're talking because our next goal was a 4-month mark, and this is where we're at right now in our journey. We've had the unit for 4 months, or almost close to 4 months. We're a week shy, and we came super close to meeting that goal, and I'm sure we can talk about it later. But with that money back guarantee, from an entrepreneur's point of view, because it's not a cheap modality, it's an investment into your business. I needed to speak to my financial team. And so with my COO and my financial director, I needed to convince them that it would be a great investment, and that it wouldn't be something that we would regret later. And fast forward till today, they have nothing to say except they smile.
Wow. And I mean, we have a lot of providers, maybe even on this call right now, that have small clinics and maybe their COO or their financial director is their spouse. And you just need that thumbs up saying like, okay, yeah, I believe this is going to work. One thing to note too is I totally get that a group training was probably difficult for you to get to at the time, being in California. I think at the time we only had group trainings on the East Coast, but now we've got group trainings on the West Coast. We've got California. We've got Arizona. We've got all over the East Coast as well. We have now 5 clinical advisors that do group trainings across the country. So no matter where our providers are that are looking to get StemWave, there's a group training that's close to them. So they don't have to stress about, missing a ton of time like, you were worried about missing, time with your patients. So you know, after you've had this great success, you're working with our team the whole time, right? Every person that becomes a StemWay provider, you get a client success manager that onboards you and helps you work through how the device is going to be implemented into your clinic. Can you talk a little bit about your experience working with our client success team?
Absolutely. And so from the beginning, Alicia Strickland has been instrumental in helping to make sure that she provided a concierge service. Whatever I need and whenever I had a question, Alicia was always available, and she wasn't able to answer a question. She always routed me to the right person. And still till today, 4 months later, she's still assisting and helping me out. And I didn't realize that with the PPP Platinum Provider Program, that's part of the program. And so for for anyone interested in thinking about StemWave, you get that support through the PPP, and it's super helpful. In addition to that, Austin, when it comes to marketing, in the first 30 days, okay, so for anyone considering the program, the first 30 days, StemWave has a specific way you should do the program. So follow the recipe. They said don't market externally. Although my COO and finance officer director was saying that this is a big investment, we should start with that. And I said, yeah, we can start with that, but that's not what they're recommending. if they're recommending plan A, stick to the plan. And so that plan A for the 30-day, first 30-day market of marketing, it was marketing your internal patients. For us, that lasted 60 days. And because I mean, we have a large practice. And so after that initial marketing plan, then what you need to do is market externally, and so that's where Austin came in, and the company that StemWave uses Go High Level. Go high level. It's super simple, especially because majority of the practices today should be on an electric healthcare EHR. And so then you can get one of your team members to download names, phone numbers, and emails, and create a list for you. Fortunately, our list was 2,500 names and emails, and so that was able. So by the time we hit the first 30-day or 60-day mark, that's when Austin was communicating with me, and he says, okay, Dr. Kalani, this is the next step. And he gave me marketing strategies that consistently filled up our schedule. And so your team has just been phenomenal in the success of my StemWave relationship so far.
And that's so great to hear. Austin is fantastic. The whole marketing team is fantastic. I think that what people need to know that may not know, traditionally, you buy a device, could be, an inexpensive device or a very expensive device, and you get the device and then you don't hear from the company ever again. And that is not the case with StemWave. It's literally a partnership. You get our device, and we have so many assets, so many team members that are dedicated to make sure that the providers have success. We have, like you mentioned, a whole side of the business that helps you with marketing. You have your client success manager that makes sure that you're onboarded correctly and anything you need regarding the device you're provided with. We've got marketing assets that we provide like banners and flyers and brochures that we provide to our providers to make sure that they have all of the tools in their arsenal to really be successful with the device. Plus, we talked about the online platform school. So it really is more of a community. We have coaching calls, we have the message boards. We want to make sure that all the providers feel supported. How has your experience in the StemWave community been?
There's group discussions, and so in school there's group discussions, I surrendered my use of social media this past January because it was just wasting time. And so because I was in the rabbit hole of STEM-wave education and training, I would read everything. And the great thing about it is that providers for STEM-wave, they bring any topic that you could ever imagine with the treatment for the device. And so then there's also a dialogue and a conversation, and it's great because your providers, they respond quickly. And so when it comes to my education with StemWave, I mean, it's ongoing, it's consistent, and it gives me, quite frankly, it gives me something to do, and I can always get better and sharpen my sword whenever I pull up school.
That's awesome to hear. I'm so glad you're taking advantage of all that. There's so much great information there. Um, So I want to get into now kind of the financial success side of it that you've seen. You touched on it a little earlier. And for everybody that's listening, if you have any questions for Dr. Kalani or myself, throw them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end of this talk. But okay, so you had said that in the first 60-day trial, you had seen some pretty incredible results as far as revenue. Um, you set another marker there. Can you tell us a little bit about the type of success you saw early on, like the first 60 days?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the first 60-day, mind you now, I paid zero for the device. And within that first 60 days, we're about the $45,000 mark.
Wow.
To date, I paid $300 for the unit. And I don't want to say this to impress you, but impress upon you that the unit works. We've earned $92,000. I still have one more week to get to my $100,000 mark, but for a $300 investment and $92,000 in earnings, I'd say that was a really great investment. And so moving forward, my goal would be just to be humble and $10,000 a month to increase into my practice, that revenue, which I know that will exceed, it will be worthwhile taking a look at. And mind you, I also want to share. I personally, I know how to use the device, but I say about 3 to 5% of the time, I'm the treater. I don't treat with StemWave. I delegated that 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's a great point. That for anybody that's looking into StemWave, you can absolutely be the person that's running the device, or you can train your staff. The only thing is that there actually has to be a medical, director, or someone heading up your clinic that is trained on the device and is kind of leading the way because there's a diagnostic part to StemWave as well. Obviously, patients have to see some sort of medical professional. So, how long have you had the device?
Since November 20th.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible revenue generated from having it for such a short time. That's incredible.
The instrument works, and I'm glad that you talked about making sure that there's oversight. We have a weekly meeting. My tech that runs the StemWave unit, I'm my office is right next to the StemWave unit, and so then I know when it's being ran because you can hear it throughout the office. And I always have a conversation. I review the charts. I talk to the tech and make sure that the patient is benefiting. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are certain conditions that you cannot help. But for the most part, it well, majority of the times it does help the patient. But do we bring them back to when they're 18 years old again? No, we don't. But we can reduce the amount of medication that they're taking, and more than likely avoid surgery.
What are some of the results you've seen StemWave have with your patients that have been pretty that stand out in your mind?
Knees. I told my tech the other day. I said, if we just wanted to have a knee practice, we could be successful with just the knee practice. There's a small percentage of patients that don't benefit from the knee. However, with the trainings that you provide, if you work different parts of the body, like the SI joint, the greater trochanter, you work on the ankles, that'd relieve some of the tension in the knee, and that patient will benefit from it. And many times, patients will come in with an initial problem, but then you treat and you map out areas that potentially could be the problem, and that's actually the problem, and then you've helped that patient out.
That's right. Yeah, I think that one of the cool things about StemWave is that it is almost like a diagnostic tool because a patient may come in and say, "Oh, it hurts here on my knee," but then through mapping, you can actually get feedback in real time from the patient and find out that, oh, actually, the injury, the damaged tissue is on the other side.
Yes. I'm gonna use myself as an example. I'm a disabled vet. I injured myself, and I always had ridiculous pain in these three fingers. And I was one of the very first patients for StemWave, and even when I was adjusting, I couldn't feel the fingers. But today, because of the stem wave treatment and the mapping process, and I highly encourage, if you are going to utilize stem wave as modality in your business, in your practice, make sure that you get really good at mapping, because mapping. Hey, doctor. So when it comes to mapping, what you do is you use the stem wave unit at a lower intensity and a lower speed, and what you're doing is it's kind of like palpation. You're searching for what really needs to be worked on. So when you talk about the body, you have muscles, tendons, ligaments, uh, fascia, and then you have the bones. And so with mapping, that helps isolate the areas that potentially could have inflammation. And one of the ways of detecting that inflammation is by mapping that area, and that patient will feel something. Not necessarily pain, but they'll feel something. And so that something potentially could be an area that's inflamed, because if you think about muscle and tendon, there it's blood. There's blood innervation. A ligament doesn't have blood innervation, and so you're not necessarily only looking for pain. You're looking for something. And so if you're able to map that now, once you isolate the areas that you worked on, that you found through the mapping process, you can now increase the intensity, you can now increase the speed, and now that becomes therapeutic. And so hopefully that explains the mapping. And so for me, I just wanted to share that it really helped my neuropathy, because the problem now is that question is, am I disabled? But when I goes when I go to my VA appointments now, I mean, they ask me, what are you doing? I say, I'm doing StemWave treatment. They go, tell me about it. And so it gives me another opportunity to share StemWave with the disabled veteran community.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, that's great. Not only that you were able to like try it out on yourself, which a lot of providers do, when they become STEM wave providers for the first time, they want to make sure that the proof's in the pudding. And so they do it on themselves. And, who doesn't have some sort of injury from their youth that it's chronic and nagging them. And a lot of times what we see, and you didn't get to see this because you didn't have group training, but in the group training is where we really see providers, because everyone gets together and we have all different types of providers. We have chiropractors, we have PTs, we have MDs, and they get to try the device on each other for the first time. And the epiphanies that you can see in real time is one of my favorite things. That when I go to these group trainings and I observe, it's one of my favorite things to see people that aren't necessarily like skeptics, but they're still not convinced that this is everything that we say it is. And then once you get that first treatment, I mean, we see stuff where somebody's coming in with an elbow or a shoulder that's been bothering them for 20 plus years, and they haven't been able to, get it above 90 degrees or whatever. And they do their first stem wave treatment, and all of a sudden they're like swinging their arm around like a pitcher, and they're almost trying to like re-injure it to because they don't believe that it doesn't hurt anymore. Have you had any interactions with patients after using stem wave where after the treatment they're just in so much disbelief that they don't know what to do or say?
It happens all the time, man. It happens primarily to probably about 60 to 70% of all of our new patients. And that's why the unit sells itself.
Well, do you have any like anecdote about a time where there was such a dramatic result after even just the first treatment with a patient that it really moved them?
I have one patient, when Dr. Barton was here. She's a chiropractic patient, but then she discontinued chiropractic care because, quite frankly, as much as I'd like to think that I would be able to help her, I wasn't able to help her. She had bilateral hip uh, issues and challenges. And so then she had stopped chiropractic care for about 3 months. And so, in preparation for the visit of our onboarding with Dr. Barton, we reached out to her and she was open to trying it. And so when she was, I mean, that's how good it is. I had to pause and laugh about it and have some kind of emotion because when she was done with the treatment, where she couldn't walk, she was running, basically running down my hall in disbelief. And for me, after 28 years of taking care of our community, that means the world to me because it's not about the economics. Yeah, as a businessman, it's super important that you're making ends meet, that you're able to pay your bills and you're able to grow and have some profit. But at the end of the day, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a doctor, and my heart to serve supersedes all of that. And so just to see her in that elated moment and being able to run down the hall and say, I can't believe it. Now, when she comes into the office for treatment, she's on supportive care now, but she's still running. And it just brings joy to my heart because we helped. And she didn't have to undergo surgery. There's no side effects. And I don't have to, I sleep well at night because I know that no matter what, she can get the treatment all day long and I'm not hurting her. We're not hurting her. Everything we're doing for her, it's only helping her. So hopefully you felt my gratitude in that story because I'm super grateful for what we've been experiencing with StemWave because it really is making a difference in our patients' lives. And if you don't believe me, try it. You have no you have a 60-day guarantee.
That's an incredible story, and I'm so glad you brought that up. It's something that we at StemWave, we really tie ourselves to. We're trying to change traditional healthcare. We're trying to, bring a modality to people that's non-invasive that can really change people's lives. Because at the heart of everything, just like you said, you got into chiropractic to help people. And yes, like there is a business side. Like, yes, we obviously want to sell our device, but we want to sell our device and put it the mission of the company is to have StemWave available to every single person. Every single person. So we want to get it in every clinic, in every medical office around the world so that people can feel that result, like you're talking about, that hope. We actually do this series of videos on our YouTube called the Impact Series, where I go around to some of our providers and I interview the patients and hear their real stories of how StemWave has changed their lives. And it very much like the story you just told, it's really giving people hope back in their lives. And for anybody that, is looking to bring that to their clinic, to their practice, to bring hope to their patients. And also, obviously, the financial side, like Dr. Kalani, you've had some really impressive, financial success with StemWave, but it really is about helping people. You can book a call with our team, go to our website, stemwave.com. I'll put it in the chat. Uh, and you'll have a conversation with our sales team and see if it's right for you. Uh, Again, it's 60 days. You could try it out. If it's not something for you, which, just so everyone knows, we have a 98% success rate. And the reason for that is because it works. And we also, as a company, we know what we're doing. Just like Dr. Kalani talked about, with all of the support, all of the videos, all of the coaching, we have marketing help. It's really an ecosystem for success. And that's why we're so confident that you can try it for 60 days. And, it's if it doesn't work, you can get your money back. But for 98% of people, it's a home run. Um, if you were going to tell another medical provider, maybe a friend, a colleague, who was kind of on the fence still about StemWave, how would you kind of get your point across to them that this is something they need to do?
That would be easy. I would invite them to my office and have them perform a treatment on them. The unit speaks for it. The unit does all the work. And if you're trained and you're well trained and you understand why you're doing what you're doing, that provider is going to then see the result, and then they will uh, hopefully come on board and get a STEM wave unit. And I'm glad that you mentioned that your goal is to have have a unit in all of the providers' offices. And so, one of the biggest things that I thought about initially was the fear of overpopulating STEM wave units throughout California. And then I did the research. I was like, there's 14 offices in California that have STEM wave units. And I never was afraid as a chiropractor that there's a chiropractor right down the street. There's way too many people to take care of. And there's so many people that need help. And so step out of your comfort zone, get a STEM wave session, try it on you, and then purchase a unit because it's going to make a difference in taking care of your community because your community is counting on you to make a difference and to be that difference for them. And this is an opportunity for you to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think community is such a great thought to have here because we have providers that even recently we had a provider that reached out to us and said, I've been treating in this neighborhood for many years, and people know me, but then as soon as I got StemWave and I started treating some of the local business owners and even like some of the people that work at the local grocery store, now when I'm in the grocery store shopping, everybody's like high-fiving me and saying hi, and you become this beacon in the community because you're the healer.
Yes.
One of the things that we hear initially from people, especially with like a new device, is that, they're maybe a little hesitant because, oh, it's going to be so difficult for me to learn something new. It's going to be this headache like, how does it even arrive? Like, do I have to put a lot of stuff together? Could you talk a little bit about your experience when you first got the unit and the ease of putting it together, like what's involved in just even getting it up and running?
I thought the exact same thing. And they have what they call a white glove service. They deliver it, they uncrate it, they set everything up for you. Your only responsibility is to do a simple math calculation, to do a water and salt saline solution um, measurement. So then this way you can set the electrode and put it in the head. That's it. It's A, B, and C. It's much easier than putting together an IKEA furniture. I mean, it is super simple. And I personally stressed about it in the beginning, but I got to let everybody know that's listening. It is super simple. And you really don't want to mess with anything because the unit is simple to use and it's simple to set up.
Yeah, I want to echo that. We try to make it as easy as possible. Like you said, the white glove service. Um, I personally have trouble with IKEA. So, I
That's
mean,
why it's easier.
it's just pictures. It's just pictures. We have much more in-depth training videos, and we have videos for everything. Like you mentioned, the saline solution, how to put the electrode in, how to clean everything. We have very robust videos that go over every step of it, including the uncrating. But like you mentioned, it is white glove. It'll be uncrated. And as far as like piecing things together, what is it? Just the applicator head and the handpiece cable. It's like three things you have to screw in.
Simple, super simple. And the great thing about it, is that your videos, it's practical. It's literally 1 to 3 minute videos. I don't have to sit there for 15 minutes or 20 minutes watching a video, try to figure it out. If I need to do part A, it's a 1 minute video. Part B, it's a 1 minute video. And that's it. It is that simple.
And for everybody to know as well, um, not only do we provide these videos that go over instructions on how to like get the device up and running, how to do maintenance on it, when we do onboard you, you get a bunch of material documentation of the protocols, how much energy to use, how many shockwaves to use for different body parts. We're constantly updating and providing all of these materials to make sure that you're using the device in line with how our clinical advisors have advised you to use it. But is always evolving. So we'll come out with new protocols like every 6 months as we learn more about how people are responding and when new data comes out, because there are a lot of studies about the body's response to this type of therapy. So again, just kind of back to what we talked about in the beginning, what separates StemWave from other competitors is we're always evolving. We recognize that we want to be on the cutting edge always and move forward with you. And that's kind of something that we make sure to make a focus to provide our providers with all the information so that there are no hiccups, there are no questions. So I would ask you, Dr. Kalani, if you can say one thing about StemWave, if you want people to know one thing about StemWave, what would that one thing be?
Is that you have a complete program and you're thorough. And trust the process and take the leap, and you won't have any regrets if you followed your process because you have a solid process.
Are there any treatments that you've done with certain conditions that you thought before StemWave, like, there's no way we're going to be able to help this person pre-StemWave, but now with StemWave, you've seen some great results with?
It's a good question. Hips and knees. Hips and knees. Unfortunately, at a certain point in time, I needed to surrender and support the patient in their quest for surgery. And at this point in time, hips and knees, let's use our stem wave modality, and let's see if you need surgery. And I said there's at minimally 50% of the patients have reconsidered having surgery. So did that change their life? Did that change my practice? Did that change my ability to help that patient? Yes, it has.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to bring up. So many providers are frustrated when they have to refer somebody out because they don't have the ability to help them anymore. And then just knowing that StemWave could retain those patients, avoid surgery. I mean, we hear it all the time, whether it's through the interviews that we do with the Impact series or even just like anecdotally from our providers. So many times we hear, I had a patient come in, they were told by an orthopedist or a surgeon that they were going to have to get hip replacement or knee replacement or something, and it's scary. Nobody wants to go under the knife. And so we tried StemWave first, and now we're looking at MRIs, we're looking at X-rays, and they're like, you don't need surgery anymore. Like it's just crazy some of the stories we're hearing. So that's
Hey,
fantastic.
I've experienced that. And so, yep, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of gone over so many different aspects to, your story, Dr. Kalani, and how StemWave has really, boosted your clinic, helped your patients. We've had some questions come through the chat. If anybody has any more questions for either Dr. Kalani or myself, throw them in there now. And in the meantime, again, I'll just repeat, it's a 60-day, try it or get your money back. It's kind of a no-brainer. We'll put StemWave in your office, try it out for 60 days. You can get the training. We have all of the materials for you to make sure that you're a StemWave pro. And, we're all, again, the proof is in the pudding. The reason why we can make this 60-day trial is because we are so confident that StemWave will work for your practice, just like Dr. Kalani has seen with his patients who are avoiding surgery, who are running down his hallways. He has to put like caution, running patient signs in the hallways for people to watch out around corners because patients are running around. There's some real amazing, magical, life-changing things that are happening with StemWave. And so if you're at all interested in this, if you want to be able to help treat, acute and chronic musculoskeletal conditions that come through the door and want to give StemWave a try, just go to our website. I put it in the chat, stemwave.com. Click on any number of the buttons that say book a call with our team or book a demo, and you'll get on the phone with our sales team. And it'll be a conversation much like this where they're going to find out about your clinic, find out about the type of patients you're seeing, see if StemWave is right for you. We don't work with everybody, but 98% success rate, we know what we're doing. So it'll be very easy, very fun call to see if you can get this modality in your clinic and have the type of success that Dr. Kalani is doing. So with that, I think we've answered everybody's questions. And I just want to say to you, Dr. Kalani, it is incredible to hear the success you've been having with StemWave on your patients. It's incredible to hear the success you've had with your clinic revenue wise. And I cannot wait to check back in with you in 6 more months and hear the type of numbers that you're seeing from just using StemWave. So I appreciate you hopping on this Q&A with me and for giving everybody an idea of your experience and helping people maybe get over some of their questions and fears about getting on the StemWave train. So thank you, Dr. Kalani.
Thank you for allowing me to share my story, and I look forward to working with you and your team in the future. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, don't ever hesitate to reach out. And I look forward to success moving forward. Take care. God bless you all.
Thank you. We'll see you on your island.
Mahalo. Thank you.
All right,
Let's do that.
for sure.